Yeah, thank you very much for joining this session, which is pretentiously called Redesign Design, right? So it seems that we are going to talk about design, UX, and a process, and of course, communication for the next 30 minutes or so. But before digging into this topic, I would like to start from another passion of mine. I really enjoy design, I really love design, but another thing I really love the most is food, right? And I would like to start this presentation telling you a small story. So, it's been a couple of months ago, and me and my girlfriend, we were spending a lazy Sunday at home, and we decided to make something special. We said, okay, yeah, it's raining outside, what shall we do? Well, let's do something special. Let's do a dessert, very special dessert. This red velvet macarons, right? It looks fantastic, super tasty, and we had pretty much all the ingredients that was requested. So we went to the internet and we looked for the perfect recipe for those macarons. And so we started messing up all the kitchen and heating, cooking, squeezing, all the operation necessary for this, and spending a lot of attention on the recipe, because it seems a simple stuff, but it's not very big. It's very complicated things, and you need to put a lot of attention on the minutes and on the degrees on the oven and everything that you're going to use. And at a certain point, we took everything we prepared. We put it on a plate and we put it in the oven. And we said, okay, let's wait, and yeah, going to be awesome, but that was the result. So, right, not so great. And why? We spent hours finding the right things, doing the right stuff, following all the instruction that was on the recipe, and that was the result. That was really, really disappointing for us. And we started saying, this is the same feeling that sometimes I have when I work, because sometimes I'm really doing the things, like trying to make some agile, UX, design, those kind of processes, and spending a lot of attention on the recipes that I found from books, from other experiences, and so on. But the results, it's very disappointing. Sometimes the things that I found after months, after time that I'm experimenting those things, are not actually the best. And I would like to start with this idea, that there are no recipes that can guarantee success, especially when we are talking about design and UX and all those stuff. I'm going to tell you more. But before getting more into details, I would like to introduce myself. So, my name is Matteo Cavucci. You will find me on Twitter as Matteo MCED. I'm originally from Italy, but I'm living in Berlin, in Germany, since pretty much 3 years. I'm a consultant and I'm working for this company called ThoughtWorks. You probably heard about ThoughtWorks. It's about technology. It's about building great products, great solutions for our clients, but at the same time also trying to do something for good. Have a good spirit, and we try to build good things for the global south and the global north. So we are engaged in topics like privacy and building communities and including people and diversity from all over the world. And a little bit about me, I can tell you that I always worked between those two things, right? So since the beginning, since I started in the media industry, but I feel that I always been between technology, so doing things with technology, like I spent a lot of time programming. I've been, let's say, an engineer, let's say. But I tried to move more on the design side. I was really fascinated about design is evolving, where design comes from, and all the things coming from the design stuff. And from my point of view, those two disciplines that now we are tending to think as a separate stuff, I think that they are very similar, because I believe that both they're acting in this space between what we have now, so the existing situation, and how we would like to change the world. So both design and technology works in this gap between things that we have now and the preferred solution, the preferred world that we want to do. But yeah, let's go through. What about you? How many people here work as a designer? Quite a lot. And how many actually works as a PO or in the product space? It's going to be interesting for you. And how many people struggles actually with this idea of design and agile and, let's say, iterative space? It's going to be interesting also for you. So, let's give you a little bit an overview about what we are going to do now. So, I would like to start trying to define what is design. So, having a common understanding on what we talk about when we are talking about design. And then we're going to see why design is struggling with the challenges that comes from the digital era, from the digital product device. Okay, I made a mess.
Oh, sorry. Okay, now it works. So, as I said, let's start from here. Let's start out defining what is design. Let's see what are the actual challenges that design is encountering when we are talking about designing digital products. And then let's explore something different, you know, something that I would call a different idea of design. We are going to go there, but yeah, let's start from here. Let's start from what is design? That's a very complicated question, isn't it? Because what I think, I believe that the idea of design that we have is strictly connected with that, with the Industrial Revolution, right? Because at a certain point, technology was allowing people to build very complicated stuff like cars or whatever. And we start asking ourselves what we need to build. And in order to build something that was valuable for the market, we was looking for something useful and something that was a mean for people that was using it. And so the original idea of modern design, I would not go through too much, but I assume that you probably know a lot of things about design in the industrial here. But one of the things that is coming from this model of producing things is the scientific management, right? And I bet that you know a lot of things about Henry Gantt and Ford and Taylor and all those ways of organizing the production. But one of the things I would like to focus is this one, that when we are talking about the scientific way, the industrial way of producing things, we pretty much have the same model over and over. We have people that decide what to do, and then people on the shop floor doing the things, right? So they are like the white collars that will decide what we need to put on the market, and people on the shop floor that we are going to execute those things. And Bertrand Russell was capturing this idea in a very clever way, saying there are two kinds of works, right? Altering the position of the matter and near the Earth's surface relatively on the other such matter, and telling the other people to do so. So, just two kinds of work. And, this was a very successful way of organizing people, of organizing forces, right? Because it worked so well for more than 100 years. So, we was able to produce a lot of things at a mass scale, a lot of products, a lot of physical product. And if you see companies, if you see like firms was organized, that was pretty much the structure. This is a very simplistic way, but we can say that we have shareholders somewhere putting the capital, then we have management trying to structure and to tell people what to do. And then there was design, right? There was a ring in this chain of command that was deciding what the product looked like, or what was the characteristic, what was the features, what was the things that we want to sell. And it was preparing a document, and this document was sent was sent to the shop floor and to the people making the product. And designers spend a lot of time defining the way they work. You probably heard about this, that designers start with framing the problem, with having an idea what's going on, and then ideate, prototype, making a prototype with real materials to test if it's the right material, if it's well streamlined, if it's actually what we are looking for, and then stop. And then we need to stop, because then production and distribution have to come, right? So the design process in a typical industrial space have a beginning and an end. And the goal of the design is actually making something that will be easy to scale and very efficient to produce. Because if we are going to find a great design, a great object, the way we are going to make it, and if we can make it faster, and if we can make it, in a more efficient way, it means more money coming in, more value for shareholders. And if we are talking about quality, the classical idea of design is pretty much that, right? So having a product and confronting the final product, the product that's been made on the shop floor, with the original blueprint. How much the product matches the blueprint. 100%? Great. Something is missing? Oh, that's not quality. That's go away. And when you have a great design, it means that probably you're going to have a product like this, right? Something that has been decided, probably, I don't know, 100 years ago, and didn't change so much for decades. So those kinds of objects are great design because you can see that what has been decided at a certain point was valuable for years and years, for decades and decades and so on. So we can say at this point that doing design means doing a plan. So having the capacity of foresee the future and put the idea on a document, on a plan, and say, okay, we are going to make this. And a lot of things changed through the years, right? So we had a lot of improvements on the way people are producing things in a factory. So think about lean, think about Toyota production system. Those are great things happening in the shop floor. But actually also another thing happened, and it's pretty visible. I mean, it's everywhere those days, which is the fact that we are starting making digital products. We are starting making things that are immaterial, are made with another matter. It's not about concrete, it's not about glass, it's not about plastic, it's about another thing. And we can see that we have this new thing, this new matter, but we are still having old habits, old mindset, old mind model, let's call it. Because have you heard about that? Have you heard about people talking about software and say, okay, software is like building a house, right? So we need to call the engineers that will make the plan, and then here's going to be the place for the kitchen, this is going to be the place for the bathroom, the window is going to be there, and then people comes and they start building it, right? And this is, I mean, this is a mind model. So we think about software, something new, with something old, with something that we know very well. And this is actually something that is recurring a lot with human history. But we can see that software is different. I mean, the way we are, the things that we are moving for producing digital products is not bricks. It's something that has way low friction to change. It's something that is easy to change. I know that you probably are thinking about big monolithical applications that are very, very hard to change and it's bloody expensive to evolve. But software is way more easier to be changed. I mean, if you want to change something, we can. I mean, yeah. But if you want to change a building, or if you want to change a production thing that has been sent to production and is already on the market, well, that's going to be very, very hard. And another thing that we can observe, talking about software and talking about digital products, is the fact that digital products created a completely new market. A market where things like expectation from users are extremely complex. They arise everywhere, every day. So if you think about what were the expectations like 5 years ago to a normal user from the Western world, they was completely different from what people want now. And also you see that there are these things that people call the disruption, right? So there are companies, they are set it up in months, in days, and they are able to completely change the landscape of a specific product, right? Think about Instagram. Think about cases like that. It was set up in a weekend and changed completely the way we are interacting with photographs, with photos and videos and stuff like that. And so for those reasons, it's extremely important that our work as a designers, but I mean as a people working in software, are optimized for those things, for responsiveness and adaptability. So for the capacity of respond of external changes and to adapt things. So making something that can actually change. But, I mean, if we are talking about design, if we are talking about UX and how those things are organized, I thought before, I mean, I'm a consultant. So when I'm going to clients, and when I start to map their value stream, what I see is something like this, right? The water scrum fall. They say, oh yes, I mean, we are an agile company, that's great. I mean, we are doing a lot of iterative stuff, we have user stories, we have, I don't know, retrospectives and this and that. Yeah, but if you start asking questions, you know, if you start making the picture, what you have is this thing, right? That, yeah, there are people here doing some kind of a iterative development, and yeah, there is the QA, but there are shareholders coming in the room, asking the PO that we need to make this. They call it the strategy, right? Oh, this is the strategy. Those are the things that we need to build. And yeah, PO, PMs start making a plan, you know, writing user stories, and then asking the designers, okay, those are the things we need to do. Please do the design. Have you heard about that, right? And do the design is actually, you know, something that we can call a design artifact. So yes, I mean, I'm talking about wireframes, I'm talking about mock-ups, but also I'm talking about service design blueprints. You know, something that we prepare and then we pass to something else, to somebody else that then needs to, and those people have to implement it. You know, those are the things to implement, please do. And when then things goes to production, and then finally goes to users, you see how many steps there are between users and designers. And at this point, when the things are actually on the shelves, let's say on the virtual shelves, designers are probably jumping in another project. They are in another place, doing another things. And if something goes wrong here, or I mean, if just people find out that there is something more that we can have here, that's something that we can improve, well, we tend to say, oh, those are extremely hard to implement. So those are the cost of change. If things, so if things comes here, so if we figure out that there are some kind of things that needs to be changed, well, it's going to be extremely painful to implement those things because all the team already shifted to another place. And that's a pity, you know, because the things that we can learn when people are interacting with the things that we are doing are great. You know, those are the biggest advantage that we can have if we start observing people, how people interact. But unfortunately, we can see that designers are putting a lot of effort before the launch. So they're focusing a lot on predicting how the product should be, and then, you know, jumping to another track, jumping to another thing, jumping to another topic. And that's, I mean, as I said, that's a pity, because when something goes to users, so users get something new, a new feature, a new product, a new whatsoever, well, their needs changes. The way they see the world changes. So think about how many people could predict the iPhone before the iPhone. But I mean, there are a lot of examples, a lot of things that we can think, even small things, because everything we do in a certain way changes the world. But I mean, I can give you a lot of examples, but I would like, I will let this guy to give you a very good example.
I was on an airplane and there was internet, high-speed internet on the airplane. That's the newest thing that I know exists. And I'm sitting on the plane and they go, open up your laptop, you can go on the internet. And it's fast and I'm watching YouTube clips. I'm in an airplane. And then it breaks down. And they apologize, the internet's not working. The guy next to me goes, this is bull. Like how quickly the world owes him something he knew existed only 10 seconds ago.
Right. Right. So this was Louis C.K., right? He's a great comedian. And he perfectly captured this thing, right? He said, when somebody knows that there is a high-speed connection on a plane, well, you want it. Now you have a new need, which means a reliable Wi-Fi connection on a plane. And when you get it, you need something new, and something new. And there is always this gap between the things that we have and the things that we prefer to have. And what we do is actually operating in the space here. But yeah, I know what people says at this point. It says, oh yes, I mean, it's just about investing on user research. I mean, user research is great, right? Because it gives us a lot of insights, a lot of things that we can use to direct our efforts, to say, okay, there is something value in this direction, we should start digging it here. But sometimes I have the impression that our industry is a little bit obsessed about the need of investing on user research, that forgets the fact that it's extremely complicated. And people tend to say, okay, I mean, user research will give us the truth, so will give us a real valuable thing to do when we are dealing with people. And even a scientist knows that when we are dealing with people, it's extremely hard to get the truth, because things changes, right? Half of psychology studies fails the reproducibility test. Why? Because there are a lot of things that can go wrong when we are doing research, like biases, poor experimental control, demand characteristic, statistical power not considered, partial reporting, and this is actually my favorite one because I've observed this so many times, that says post hoc cherry picking of significant results. When you are dealing with numbers, when you have reports, people can find whatever they want on numbers, right? It's very, very hard. And this happens because, as I said before, we are dealing with humans. So we are dealing with humans that interacting with a very well-connected systems. So we have phones and we have internet. We have a lot of information coming in, and this makes us dealing with a complex adaptive system. So a place where a lot of things are moving together, and it's very hard to predict what people want before showing something, before they are dealing with something new. And, well, that's a very interesting problem, isn't it? Because, I mean, what should we do? And how we can deal with complexity at this level. And when we are talking about complexity, actually, something that comes to my mind is that probably we should shift the way we are conducting design from this idea of planning things to something different. And when I'm starting asking, okay, what we can do? Well, I start to recall the things that has been developed during from the experience coming from the agile software development, which is something that, has started somewhere at the end of the 90s, and start asking a lot of questions about what shall we do, how can we make better software. And one of the things I like the most from the agile approach is the fact that they says, well, we are not able to predict if we are going good. I mean, if we are doing something good until we are not making it, until we are not building it. And this is a great thing, I mean, because, and you can see it in original agile practices. I mean, you can see that the engine behind the original agile idea is this inspect and adapt pattern. I mean, if you stop and think, I mean, why we are doing demos, retro demos, a show and tell to clients, to POs, when at the end of an iteration? Because this is the way that we want to check if the things that we made are actually targeting, are actually the things that we believe users will love. And this is a check, this is a way it's not just showing the things we did, it's checking how close we went to satisfying user needs. And, I mean, Agile thought about that because, Agile comes from an era where software was developed and then distributed on CD and floppy disks. The original Agile manifesto comes from 2001, where, software was something that you need to receive, and then you need to install on your computer, and then you have to run the software, and then if something goes wrong, I don't know, probably you have to write a letter, write a fax. But what we observed in the past years is this, that, the way we are operating the software is changing. It has been changed a lot. And you probably heard about that, right? You probably heard about this mantra that says, you build it, you run it. And this is a great thing that comes from this idea of DevOps. Oh, yeah, this is a very, a very famous buzzword. But what does it mean, DevOps? well, many people think that DevOps is about how many times we can develop per day. I mean, we can push code on production per day, or how few operations we have to push our code directly on live production, and how quick we can restore in case of error. No, it's not about that. DevOps starts from the idea that we have a team which is responsible of running a project, or running a feature, or running a product from the inception to retirement. A single team. And the essence of DevOps is feedback. The fact that we are pushing something out, and if something goes wrong because we made an error, well, we are able to intercept those things from operation and revert to another state. And this is great. I mean, this is an empirical way of doing software. So pushing software out and observe how people react. And this is actually very interesting if you start thinking all those ideas and bring those ideas into the design domain. And we can have something that we can call design ops, right? That's still quite funny, but I mean, there are a lot of people talking about design ops. It's not just my craziness. It's not just, just stupid stuff. And what is design ops? Well, design ops is this idea of using design as a continuous, building design as a continuous process. As something that it doesn't end when we are launching a new feature, but is actually operating every day, every time, every iteration. And it's something that is between people operating, I mean, running the system, and people that have to deal with it. And what is built for that, for having an immediacy on feedback. And building this idea of a two-way conversation between company, I mean the firm, somebody trying to change the world in a sense, and the people they have to deal, they will solve something, that will co-create something together with the things that we are producing on this site. And so we can say, coming back to the original mantra, that that's great if we can make teams that runs the software and design the software at the same time. You run it, you design it. And this is particularly great when we are starting incepting the idea of hypothesis-driven development. This is something that, I mean, it's quite familiar for me because we tend to coach companies to use those systems. So to use this different way of developing. So which basically is this, is instead of having gut feeling of what to produce, instead of, be driven by instinct, we should be driven by fast feedback. And this is, for example, how it looks a typical wall when we are running a hypothesis-driven development. So we have a customer journey. On top of that, they can actually describe what we are building. Hypothesis of product. Also models that we believe can explain how the system could act. Design experiments, story map, and data, feedback, things that we are collecting from the ground. It looks pretty much like this when you are talking about hypothesis. So you probably heard about. So we believe that something will result in something, and we know that we are succeeded when we see those metrics happening. And this is a card. I mean, we are producing those cards, we are making those cards on the wall, and we are measuring it. I can give you a more probably readable example on the slide here, that you can say, we believe that making the offer teaser more prominent will result in an increased number of booking tonight, and we know we have succeeded when 10% of increase, let's say. We have a metric, we have something that we would like to check. And those are great, a lot of people are talking about this because this is a modern way to deal with software, making experiments and see how people react. And you heard a lot of people also today talking about doing experiments, run the experiment. But I mean, running the experiment is easy. Running the experiment at scale is hard. Because, I mean, doing a single experiment is something that pretty much every company can do, right? So it's like running a 5-kilometer walk, a 5-kilometer run. If I ask you, everybody here in this room can go out and run for 5 kilometers. But if we're asking you to run 5 kilometers every hour, oh, that starts to become a real challenge, right? And it's not about running a single experiment. It's about running multiple experiments, because you need to have this thing that we can call the optionality. So you have multiple experiments that produce multiple designs, let's say, multiple artifacts that will be tested and then will be integrated in case they are not getting the impact that we want. And then they will be integrated once again and once again and once again. I mean, it's just putting here 3 stages, but we can have endless stages and a continuous test and integration of things that we need. And as I said before, this is damn hard, because, I mean, you can imagine how it would look a code base when we are running multiple instances of a UI. That could be a mess. I mean, we should make things to, we should plan to have those kind of systems that can accept this level of manipulation. And to obtain this, we need to leverage on 2 things. First of all, automation. Machines are great to do stupid stuff and make it repeatable, right? So if we can leverage on automation, we're gonna save a lot of time, a lot of human energy. And together with that, we need to change the way we are putting people work together. We need a new organizational structure. To give you an overview about what we are talking, I mean, I'm talking about automate design decisions. So making it easier to produce design artifacts so people can actually focus more on ideation instead of how big should be a button, how much space we need to put between 2 elements, and so on. So we need to minimize the effort required to make an experiment, to make a new design, a new feature, to maximize the feedback that we can collect from the people, from the operation, from the people that are actually using the real software. And we see that when we are talking about design, a lot of designers are focused on building those things, right? Design systems. And design systems is a great tool because it allows people to create design, combining different things, combining different elements from a collection of guidelines, let's say. And this is great because this is actually a principle that is behind this. So enable others, designers and non-designers, to design. So give them the power, empower them to make beautiful things. How? Giving them compasses over maps. So instead of give them a specific way how to do things, let's give them tools so they can actually find their own way and they can actually figure out problems that can arise and opportunities. I mean, I'm just not talking about problems. It's also about opportunities, discovering things when we are actually operating and making the things. And so it's about building a design infrastructure. And design infrastructure is something that is here to support autonomy, building something that is consistent, not coherent. So it means that it's something that can actually help, is useful for users to recognize things, but we cannot actually limit people on teams to produce something new, to break the rules. It's fine to break the rules. And ensure quality, remove impediments, enforce accountability, reduce risks. Those are very complicated things. But one thing I would like to focus more on those final minutes, the fact that it's not just about speaking. So it's not just about a firm, a group of people that push something out, but it's also about listening. So it's not just about building design, building experiment, but it's also about thinking how we can collect back those things. So it's not just about designing interfaces or, I don't know, blueprints. It's also about design the way we can observe those people acting in front. And I can give you an example from the trenches, let's say. So we can have an experiment wall. This is a project I was coaching some months ago. So we have an experiment wall where we're collecting all those experiments, and we have a feedback board where we are trying to collect things that comes from operation. When I'm talking about operation here, I'm talking about customer center. Those people that are on the phone and they're actually answering angry people and that are reporting pain points. Those are great because we have things that we are pushing out and things that are coming in, like in a conversation. And we can observe that when we do something, something changes. And designing two-way, designing the way we are pushing out and the way we are getting in. And when we talk about organizational transformation, we can say something like this, that design is becoming something that acts as a service, acts like a service. When we have, yes, stakeholder deciding a strategy, I mean, having a sort of vision, a long-term vision, and people integrated in a product team, you know, those cross-functional team that can actually build something, that are able to build something, to run a feature from the inception to retirement. And then you have here a team of dedicated designers that they are building tools for them. They're building compasses, they're building things, and people here can pull those things from the guys on the top right and give them feedback. So you have a feedback loop here, you have a feedback loop here around the strategy, and then you have a big feedback loop here between the people that push the things on production, deliver feedback, deliver experiments to user and observe how user reacts. I'm not talking about prototype here. I'm talking about real code. And if this looks crazy now, because I mean, producing software is still something something hard in a sense. I mean, delivering those things in a fast pace. Think about how artificial intelligence can help those things in 5 years from now. And this is great. I mean, because then the problem will move from how to produce faster things to how we can make those people communicating better. Because when we are building a system, when we are actually building a brick library, we are defining a social environment, a place where people are exchanging ideas. And this is a very, very hard thing to design. I mean, this comes from Joichi Ito, that was quoting a case happening in the synthetic biology field. They have the same problem. They are actually building a library of components, a library of things, tools, so team can actually develop things, but the hard thing is about how can we orchestrate all those people together. So, I'm already late. Let's wrap up the things that we discussed in those 30 minutes. So, we observed that design comes from this paradigm of planning. And we observed that our markets, the way we are interacting, and the capacity of software are changed. I mean, the capacity of matter are changed. Markets are hard to predict, and software can actually change quite well, can respond quite easy to the change that we have. We also observed that sometimes we are tending to apply the old way to producing things, I mean the industrial way of producing things, to a post-industrial matter, to a post-industrial product. And we see that there are some stuff coming from the agile movement and from the DevOps idea that can actually be very, very helpful because it can lead to this idea of design ops, design operation. And when we are talking about design ops, we can sum up the things with those 3 points. So it's about design for learning. So it's about designing things so we can maximize the capacity of exploring complex adaptive systems, pushing experiments out, and enable other people to design. So make other people, make teams that run the things on the shop floor able to produce something, push something out, and read the new reality that has been changed after this change. And this is one of the most interesting things, which is actually connecting the design part, so connecting the capacity of imagining new things and making assumptions how the world can change with operation, with people that are operating the service all over the firm. I mean, I said before about things that comes from customer center, but there are a lot of ways of gathering feedback and gathering things and connecting those two areas that normally are not dealing together. So I think that my time is out, and well, I would say thank you very much for spending this time with me, and yeah, enjoy the rest of the conference.